Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. I was drowned out. Let's try that again. Take two. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm glad you guys have joined us this week. This is episode 77, and yeah, I'm really glad that we have some new episodes up. I've been listening to them every now and then, and it kind of reminds me that, oh, I did say that. So.
Is it like cold takes, revealed or...
Yeah, I'm like, I know I've thought this before, and maybe I've said it to somebody, but then I'm like, oh, I really did say that. So.
I really did say that. Oh, well, should we get into it?
Let's get into it. I am sure.
I like how...
Go ahead.
No, I just, you told me I was driving the car, but you just immediately grabbed the steering wheel. No, I'm just kidding. I was just going to say, I like how in the podcast now, because we do the sound effects live, that you get to see our breaks, where we get breaks, where we can, take a drink of something and dance for a second.
It's kind of, I think that's kind of cool. It does make our lives a little bit easier, and we are getting out the episodes. Yay, Chris.
I will say, it does make things significantly easier from that front. If I could get us to just stop swearing on the episode, so I didn't have to go back and bleep so much stuff out. I'd be cranking these out in no time flat, but it's the usual, find a good routine and process for getting it done. And it's been a lot smoother here lately, a little bit more. Work has slowed down. We're in the middle of a bunch of Chinese holidays and stuff like that. So, that means things get slower on our end too, for the most part. So.
Well,
happy to be cranking out some episodes.
Well, speaking of a Chinese holiday, I'm not sure if it was a holiday, but we did lose social media some people did for 6 hours. That was dope.
Not all social media, like Snapchat and Twitter and I think TikTok were all still up. But yeah, Facebook obviously had their big outage. That occurred moments after the interview that they had, with the guy that's the head of Instagram or whatever, defending, Facebook having knowledge that their apps aren't good for people and yet continuing to pump it out. And now they have, the whistleblower, who is, coming out and basically saying these guys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so, certainly interesting timing. They haven't, to my knowledge, revealed what the cause of the outage was yet.
I don't think they will.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But it was also probably very interesting for a lot of people that rely on those services for advertising, marketing, and communication. WhatsApp was down, and for some countries, that's their primary form of communication.
Yeah. I'm not pro Facebook, as I've made it abundantly clear for probably as long as we've had this podcast. But I just think that it's not really, and I heard some people talking about it today on the news, and they're just really expressing the fact that that is their go-to marketing tool. So it kind of makes me think that at some level, there's a lot of truth to what the whistleblower has presented, because they're an ad company and you are the product. So
I think we talked about it either last week or the week before, where it's they don't make improvements to the app to make it better for you, right, unless the end result is you spending more time on it, because ultimately your attention is the only thing that they care about.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to take for And I don't know if there could ever be a somewhat civil social media app or platform. But I do know that you've got to be able to pull the reins back in if probably at an individual level before I would say to start regulating it. I think that kind of freaks me out when I hear talk of regulation. It's just abundantly clear that Facebook is not a responsible company. It just really shocks me how many people continue to use their services.
I mean, I'm one of them. I rail on Facebook and Instagram all the time, and yet I still have my profiles up on both of those, and I use WhatsApp. But I mean, we used WhatsApp almost exclusively when we were down in Costa Rica, and for a lot of people in Hong Kong and other parts of China, either WhatsApp or I can't remember what the other one is. WeChat, I think. You know, those are the primary ways that we communicate with them because, I mean, you're not texting each other back and forth and paying data rates and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the I don't know how to solve for that. I just think that Facebook has shown us enough that they're not a very responsible company.
But what do you? I mean, you know, like look at big tobacco, right? And I know it's not the first time that analogy has been made, but they had a product that they knew was not good for people, and they had the research that they had done themselves proving it, and yet profit won out, you know, over logic and human
decency.
Decency, yeah, exactly. Because it was like, well, no, it's not that bad. I mean, if you're pregnant, you just smoke a little bit, you'll be fine. Like, you know, like,
I don't altogether hate that analogy. I just think it's kind of damning to Facebook.
Well, I agree, and I think that I guess where I was kind of going with it is, how do you fight something that the end user base is so highly addicted to? You know, like it's very difficult because ultimately what you really need is for the end user to step back and say, I'm not cool with what you're doing. I don't like the way that this app operates, and I'm no longer going to participate in it. And therefore, you know, either force a new platform onto the market that meets those needs, or, you know, cause Facebook to actually make some changes that are much long needed, right? Like,
well, what I'm more concerned about, I don't think. I don't know if regulation solves the issue. I don't know if another platform solves the issue. I do think that collectively it is like it's like a hive mind. I actually heard somebody say something that you said about when you say something on social media, it's like you're yelling out into the void, you know. And it's really true. I think people at some level, for the way they're, I guess 1.2 or 1.3 billion people are wired, they kind of like that. They kind of need that. I don't. Like, I really do not need the... I don't need social validation for, like, my life. And I'm not trying to be disparaging towards anybody.
yeah.
I just think that's probably one of the delineating factors of why I don't use it. I don't really care about social validation or approval, or I don't care for dishonest, you know, conversations or dialogue, or having a conversation that's completely one-sided and nothing's really resolved. Those are things I'm not wired to be interested in. I'm not saying it's altogether bad, but I think the addiction comes from that part. It's where people actually, that's something that their personality and their psyche it craves. Yeah. I personally don't get that same like shot of a high by using social media, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're wrong. I think it is. I agree. I think the analogy is not too far off. As a former like tobacco smoker, I can definitely understand the level of addiction. But well, actually I can. I was going to say Like if you're that disgusted by what you're seeing, why do you keep doing? Well, there were times I was disgusted by smoking a cigarette, but I kept smoking. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think that was kind of my yeah, like ultimately that's my point, is that those addictions, you know, and they say that like social media is, I mean, it's up there, you know, that serotonin trigger is something that's really difficult for a lot of people especially once you've developed that, you know, I guess trigger, or that process, right, of getting on there. It's really hard for a lot of people to break. I mean, the number of times I've seen people that are like, I got to take a social media break, and then like a week later or 2 weeks later, I see them posting again, you know, and it's not, you know, I'm not judging. Like, I've never taken a social media break, but I think, you know, ultimately, like, I find myself somewhere in the middle, you know, like there are things about social media platforms that I enjoy and appreciate, and at the same time, I think I don't remember exactly when it was, because I get like my Facebook memories and stuff like that all the time, and I certainly used to just shout into the void,
right?
You know, like, and say the most random things, or, you know, complain about whatever stupid little inconvenience was going on in my life, and at some point, like, I stopped. You know, it stopped. Like, and there are times where like I'm writing the tweet or the Facebook post, and then I'm like, nope, and I delete it, because it's just, you know, it's like I catch myself in that moment. You know, it's almost like going to the store to buy the pack of cigarettes, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
Well, I know the news, and I've been, you know, kind of mentioning this, that Google News is, well, not, I don't know if it's their fault to some extent, but the headlines are all clickbait. And that's,
well, and think about it, right? Like, what drives Google?
Oh, it's
algorithms, right?
Well, yes and no.
In a lot of cases,
yeah, and that's where I'm kind of like, is Facebook becoming the target because they're the biggest, and that happens a lot. But are their actions and behaviors, are they deserving of that treatment? And I think that's also true. So I think both things can be true at the same time. And that's where I'm kind of like, I just don't get it. I don't get how people can see the toxicity of Facebook, the damage it does, Instagram, you know, what it's doing, and people are still participating in it. That's the part I just can't really, I can't. Well, and that's
where I think the addiction comes in, you know, that it's something that people struggle with because they don't realize that it's, or they do, and it's something that they're not able to, you know, overcome on their own, or that they haven't found the willpower to be able to do it yet. I mean, like you were talking about with cigarette smoking, like, there were lots of times that I tried to quit smoking and failed, and eventually went and got more cigarettes, but eventually, like, I reached the point where mentally I was like, I don't want to smoke anymore. Like, I am done. Like, I'm committed to this mentally, that I don't want to need cigarettes anymore. And
but wouldn't you agree that the social component of social media is more enticing than like smoking a cigarette or drinking a beer or whatever? I think that's more like mental and emotional.
I think it can be, but I think, I mean, smoking cigarettes had a really social component to it as well, you know. I mean, all of the people that I would go outside and smoke with the times when I would quit, it's like, hey man, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette, you want to come? And it's like, I do, because I don't want to miss out on like this conversation, but I know that if I stand out there, I'm gonna smoke a cigarette.
I've read in numerous books that one of the deepest human desires is to be understood, right? And I think that at some level, social media gives people that opportunity to feel like they're going to be understood. Now, when it goes awry and you have suicides increasing and all this other craziness, that's where I'm kind of stuck. So I think that aspect of social media is probably more powerful than the behavior of grabbing a cigarette or whatever your other vices.
I think the consequences can certainly be, I mean, not that you can't die from smoking cigarettes, but like you're not gonna go smoke a cigarette and then die of lung cancer the next day. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm certainly not caping up for Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. But it is like, I think it's a really interesting kind of problem that we face right now, and again, right, regulation, I think, is much more like trying to treat these symptoms of social media and to combat it that way, as opposed to understanding what's the root cause of this. Like, why do people feel the need to be online and to connect this way? Is it because we've, something else in life has changed to the point where they don't feel that connection elsewhere? I mean, like, and
I don't know
how many, I mean, you go into the grocery store and stuff like that, and I see so many people that are just completely like in their own world. And not that I'm not that way sometimes too, but I've been lately, I guess, or maybe part of it is just being at the beach. To me, it feels like when I go into a store, I'm much more like looking, like when I walk into Publix, I'm almost always expecting somebody to say, hey, thanks for coming in, or welcome to Publix. Somebody at the customer sits, so it's like I'm always looking up to acknowledge them. And like, but I see every other person basically just walk in and ignore the fact that somebody has greeted them as they've walked into the store. It's this like, oh, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Well, I can tell you this. I know that for me personally, like, I associate mobile devices with a negative experience. So when I worked at that one company, like, I was tied to my, at then time, BlackBerry. And I would be at dinner responding to emails, and, God, did my grammar suffer for that, because I was like the thumb typing warrior. As long as I responded, I was in the clear. Everything was always an emergency. It was always pressing. And I kind of look at my mobile device as something that I have to manage. And there's a time for it, and then there's a time not for it to be around me. So I'm not the average user. Like, I like technology, but it's like I also associate mobile phones with a bad experience. So I don't know. I don't want to discount people that may be addicted to social media but I'm starting to understand that the difference, and that's why it's partially not fair to compare them to the tobacco industry, because they're addressing a human need. Like, preference is smoking or drinking or whatever your vice may be. A human need is to be understood. So these companies are filling a gap, to your point of, we're not addressing the symptoms. And I
guess, like, I look at that and think that that's even, in a lot of, and maybe this is your point, is like, that's even more dangerous. Like,
it's a hell of a lot more dangerous.
Right? Like, these other things are vices, and yes, like, people have ruined their lives over, with drinking and other vices and stuff like that. But, I mean, in this case, like, where you're filling that void that apparently like 1.3 million or billion people, however many are on social media,
well, that's just Facebook,
are experiencing. Yeah.
So I mean, I just think I look at it that way, and that's probably a lot more dangerous. That's probably why misinformation is their top content on their platform. That's why people probably flock to conspiracy theories, and because people want to be understood. It doesn't have to get any more complicated than that, and they're taking advantage of it. Now, that part is, nefarious. Like, that's intention. That is the that is murder.
I mean, that's some Bond villain level stuff there, right? Like,
you're like literally like you're like, you like this? Okay, here's more and more and more, and it's just, that's kind of how I'm starting to see it, and I struggle with reconciling people are addicted to their devices, but it can't be wrong. It's an avenue for people to get this fix or this need met at some level, and that's crazy. I just don't know what to say.
I mean, I don't know that there's much more you can say. I mean, it is, it's interesting times that we find ourselves living in, I guess, in that regard, and it'll be very interesting just to kind of see how this all shakes out from here. I mean, I'd like to say that I have a lot of faith in humanity, but
I mean, you're entitled to be skeptical. I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's going to work out. It'll work out, but eventually. I just think that I don't know how I know how I feel about Facebook, and I'm not a fan. So I see beyond the curtain, and I'm like, you guys are just not doing people right. For their CEO to be so nonchalant about everything, and they've already started the smear campaign against the whistleblower. I'm like, yeah, but so what? She only worked there for 2 years, okay, but you know how much I can learn about a company in 3 months?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, 2 years isn't some insignificant amount of time, especially now when people are job hopping like every quarter. Like, yeah.
All right. Well,
is it basically that's saying we didn't do anything in the last 2 years of significance?
Yeah. I mean, but they admit guilt by saying that we had a responsibility to change our algorithm prior to January 6th. You're culpable. Like, you can't sit here and pretend like you weren't aware of something like that.
That's what I don't get. I mean, it's like, they want to say there's no problem, but the problem that wasn't there is fixed now. Don't worry about it. What do you mean you fixed the problem that didn't exist? Like,
God, I just hate Facebook, man. I just can't with that company, man. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you at this point. Like, I'm pretty tired of all of the bullshit that we've had to put up with from Facebook.
I mean, and what's sad, and where I would probably be in the camp where you are, where you start to lose a little bit of faith in humanity, is that people are literally just like, they're angry, but they're still on Facebook angry.
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny when it all, like, when Instagram and Facebook finally came back online, because it was just this flood of memes about what people were doing during the time that Instagram and Facebook were down. Like, that's all it was. And I'm just like, that's literally all we could think about for the last 6 hours was the fact that Instagram and Facebook were down. Like,
a little bit of anxiety, but you got a lot more stuff done.
Well, I mean, apparently Twitter and Reddit both blew up at that time.
Well,
so
yeah.
There was like a Reddit post that was like, "How are you enjoying Reddit today?" Well, Instagram and Facebook are down.
I think back to the days of bulletin boards and that type of like internet community. Now, granted, it was actually it was probably more vicious than what it is now, because it was a very small select few of people that actually got on bulletin boards. I think back to forums when they started to, really have multimedia type of, or news groups with multimedia and forums and multimedia. And you saw the separation of like the personalities in each of those two examples. And I didn't think it would, consumer level technology, I hate to say it, get you results like Facebook. Like, the minute that Zuckerberg, or even, no, let me go back, MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you can, no, let me go back even further, GeoCities, right? If you look at the evolution of online communities, it's just evolved. It's devolved over the years. It's gone from, hey, I've got a fan site, to, take horse pills. Like, it's just like there's no evolution in that whole process. I can't think of anything where it's like, oh, something really good came out of that. I don't know. That's just something I think about.
I mean, I guess, like, so when you were talking about bulletin boards and forums and stuff like that, it was reminding me when I first started getting into NC State sports. there was this. There still is a site, State Fans Nation, and now they're generally viewed, I think, as like the lunatic fringe part of NC State that's constantly calling for every coach's firing, no matter what they've done, and whatnot. But that was that was where I spent a significant amount of my time in college when I was on my computer, was on State Fans Nation, reading all of these like ridiculously long threads of comments and stuff. And it was just interesting because no, you're not. But it was just like, I don't know, it was interesting because there used to be this element of like there was the community that policed the community, essentially, right? And so when people got out of line, like, it got shut down. But then there reached a point where it was like that started becoming overreach by some people, where it was a difference of opinions starts getting moderated because it's like, well, you can't say that on here because that's not a valid opinion. And it's like, well, I mean, you were just calling for the same guy's head a week earlier. Like, it's it's not any different. And so, yeah, like, I think there's been, but I don't know what's like at the again, like, what's the root cause? Like, what is driving that that destruction of like that community feeling? I don't.
Well, I think it's you get into a community because you have something, a shared experience or something that you share. You feel like you're understood, and then you create tribes within that community, and that's sociological. That's happened throughout history. So, why wouldn't that repeat in these online communities? Like, it would be outside of our human nature to do anything different.
But why do we? I guess, like, why has it gotten to the point now where so much of that, what seemed like the protective walls that were built up around those communities, are now gone?
The same thing that happened with the Gutenberg press, right? Like, you provide more information.
You made it too easy for people to...
Do you think I'm wrong?
No.
Like, there are parallels.
No, I mean, yeah, like, you think about it, the Gutenberg press in the wrong hands produces a ton of misinformation.
I don't know, the Nazis.
Exactly. Right. And so, yeah.
Mussolini.
Well, and I mean, because you were talking about like GeoCities and stuff like that. Angel Fire.
Angel Fire. I mean, I could go down a whole list.
I mean, and I did. Like, I had a Legend of Zelda Angel Fire site. I had an NFL Blitz for Nintendo 64 Angel Fire's like fan site, where it was like, run this play every single time, and you either throw it to this dude or this dude, and you'll get a touchdown, because no matter what, the defense always lines up one way or the other. Like, somebody will be open. We had all the little dancing fire gifts and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, now we're in a point where it's like you don't even have to be able to build a professional looking website, right? Like, the platform's already provided for you. All you have to do is spew out your crazy conspiracy theories.
Well, I think the secret ingredient that most people aren't listening to, and if you want, here's my solution. I just came up with a solve. The root cause is not the vitriol spread. It's not the misinformation spread. It's the fact that people want to be understood. And I think that we've stopped listening to people's points, and we decided that disagreeing is the default. Well, what if we stopped doing that? What if we actually gave people a place to where they could be heard without there are exceptions to that rule.
Right.
But that is more or less the root cause. The root cause is that people aren't understood. Nobody's listening. You can look at it in politics, sports. You pick something that we all rally behind, and I'm almost confident that that's more or less the problem. The fact that we can't listen to people, and people don't feel like they're, I mean, think about it this way, or this is the way I was also, thinking about it. We still see our politicians as they're above us.
Right.
They do what they want to do. The people that speak about, new laws, it's a commercial from a super PAC that's funded by the industries that need to be regulated because they're destroying the planet or they're ripping people off. How does somebody hear me about that same issue?
Right.
Now just multiply that across the board.
I guess like I do understand that where I start to get lost is when people thought that the big orange Cheeto was listening to them, like, and I guess to some degree, like, because he was saying some of the same crazy things that they were saying. What?
I was trying not to laugh because
a big orange Cheeto.
and then I just got the picture in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna spit my
It was a
beer
big giant Cheeto
in a blue suit with a red
blue
top.
suit. Yep, and a wig, a comb over.
Oh God. So that's
No,
but go ahead.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's just, I mean, I guess what it kind of boils down to is like, are we mature enough to limit our own addiction here, right? Like we as humans, as a society, or do we need to? And see, now all I can think of is like South Park when they had the Walmart episode. And like they go and they tear down the Walmart because everybody, stopped shopping at all the Main Street is now completely shut down. And they're like, we're never going to shop at Walmart again. Let's all go to the local store. And then they all support the local store, which turns into the next Walmart. And then they tear it down. And then they go do it again. It's like...
I don't.
And it's like, can we do that, right? Like with Facebook, can we, and not just Facebook, but social media, like if we take down Facebook, but we don't fix what the root problem is, right? Like if we break up Facebook or whatever it is, then, or regulate it, we're not really solving the issue here. And so it's just going to be some other platform, or they'll find some other way around it to be able to do the things that they want to do. Because ultimately, in some sense, like we want them to do that because it's addictive. Like it's filling a need, right? Like even if it's for me going on Twitter and being like, oh my God, these people are so crazy. Why are these people so crazy? Like there's an element of that is addictive. Like I want to make sure the crazies are still out there. What kind of crazy stuff are people replying to this totally logical, stance on this in my mind? And I've gotten better about it because I just can't. I can't do it.
It's just like
anymore.
I give up. I give up. It's too hard. My point is like, stop chasing your tail on this one. It's spend more time listening. Like we still go to the far left or the far right, and they continue to be the ones that we perceive are the majority. They're really not. It's just not true. I mean, stop pretending like that's true. And I don't know. I think the solution is very easy. It's just like figure out a way to actually listen. Yeah. It's just not that hard. It's not that complicated.
That makes sense.
I mean, because we all gravitate to the most extreme whatever. The thing with the most likes is the most sexual, or it's the most outrageous statement, or it's the most skin showing, or whatever. We're not even responding to the good that we probably most of us have within us. We gloss over that, but then we complain about the media, the news. All they tell us is like every crappy story in our neighborhood, and at the end, the fireman saved a puppy. So it's like.
But I mean, ultimately, why is that the stuff that the news reports? Because that's the stuff that we consume with ferocity, right?
Right.
We're all of the feel good stuff. Nobody cares about that anymore. We just want to know, how many people are getting raped and shot and murdered in my town or across the country, so that I don't feel safe at why you don't want to feel safe at night. That's on you, man. That's on you. We spent way more time on that topic than I thought we would. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I mean,
Are you ready to move on to something else?
Yeah, let's please do.
Sports. So I got to give a shout out to my man, Trey Turner with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look, we got like one baseball player in the pros, so I gotta champion him. Actually, Carlos Rodon had a good season too, but I don't know if he's going to play in the playoffs. But so I don't know if you know this, but Trey Turner was the shortstop, was playing for the Washington Nationals, got traded midseason, and some people feel that he has played well enough to earn consideration for like the whatever league he's in. I don't even know which one the Dodgers are in. MVP consideration. Dude's a baller. I mean, like, I'm just gonna say that. Like, have you seen the video of him sliding into home plate?
Chris.
I'm gonna take that as a no.
It doesn't matter, man. Sure, whatever. Sure, give him the MVP. That's great. But I'm upset because my Yankees are done, so I really don't care.
Yeah, your Yankees did take a bad loss last night.
A bad loss? That was like horrendous.
What are your thoughts? I mean, because you are the resident baseball and Yankees fan. So, I mean, is it time to blow it all up and start over? Does everybody need to be fired? Do we need to spend $500 million more dollars?
Yes, we need to do that, and we need.
The Yankees next year will have the baseball's first $1 billion roster.
We need to look at the pitching lineup. I think it's confusing. Like, I don't understand how you go 3 innings and pull out this guy. You pulled him out after 3 innings and you spent all this money on him. If he can't go 5 or 6, he's the wrong guy.
What happened to guys like Randy Johnson that would go 9 innings all day long? I mean, like,
well,
that's what I don't understand.
It's a different game.
It is.
It really is different. Like, the athletes in baseball now are not the same as, they're Bo Jackson, Ken Griffey, Canseco, McGuire, and I'm going to go down the whole home run team. Steroids or not, they proved that you could do it, right? They proved that it could become a power hitting game. And now you probably have, you look at a batting lineup, and if you get to the 4th batter, you're effed. You're more than likely about to go
You're giving
down.
up something, probably.
You're giving up something, right?
Yeah.
So a 3-4 batter switch, you're probably going to give up some runs. So it's you can only throw so many hard thrown pitches before you start to wear out your arm. And I'm not a pitcher, but I can.
Yeah,
I understand.
It's not like I want to see these guys get hurt, and I guess in a lot of ways it's kind of like the running back position in football, right? That used to be you had your one dude and that was it. Maybe you were lucky the Chargers and you had LaDainian Tomlinson with Michael Turner as a backup because you happened to draft him. But for the most part, you had your workhorse back, and then it was maybe you had a Darren Sproles who would come in and be your pass catching dude. But now, I mean, every team has two guys basically that they're trying to lean on. I mean, even at the college level,
you have 2 or 3 starters, and then actually, I've seen which team's got 3. I can't remember, but I saw pretty much they have packages where they'll rotate out the running backs, and you'll see 3 different people at the line.
Yeah,
and it's based on formation. It's based on yards needed, and that's crazy. So imagine that in baseball. You're probably going to throw give or take, at least 60 pitches, 60, 70 pitches by the bottom of the 3rd, right? And
you're not a very good pitcher.
Well, I mean, sure, right? I mean, but there's a possibility.
I mean, you're not wrong. I get 60 pitches, bottom of the 3rd. That's nine outs.
Yeah, I mean, you've thrown a lot of balls, right? So you're probably if you get to the 5th or the 6th, you're a superstar, in my opinion. I think their pitching lineup's kind of wonky because they gave up a lot of runs.
But I mean, like you said, they went and paid what's his name all that money to bring him in for 3 innings, like.
And John Behrman on CNN was, God, he pissed me off, man. Like I'm like trying to drink my coffee, and he's just like grinning from ear to ear. You know what he says? That blew my mind.
What?
Because the Red Sox aren't that good, but at least they beat the Yankees. I was so done. I was like, we lost a wild card playoff spot to a team that even their own fans say they aren't good. They don't have the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, so that's my other question, I guess, though, is like, does it hurt more losing to the Red Sox?
Yes, it does.
Okay. This
is like if Carolina loses the state and, for an NCAA seed. That's literally how it feels. So I was not in a good mood all day because I'm like thinking about, and I'm not the manager of the team. I can't tell them.
No, I mean, yeah.
But it's obvious if you're doing early pitcher changes. I mean,
things are probably not going your way.
Right.
Like, yeah, if you're pulling your starting pitcher before the 5th inning, then chances are that things have gone off the rails.
They're out of hand. They're out of hand.
Yeah. Speaking of out of hand, Urban Meyer seems to just be a magnet for quote-unquote controversy. I mean, in the offseason, it was him hiring the Iowa strength and conditioning guy that had gotten fired because he was a horrible racist. But, I mean, in the NFL, who cares?
Who cares? So what, 80% of the league is black?
Yeah, right? I guess it's a good thing he's not coaching in the NBA.
He'd really be screwed.
Now they lose to the Cleveland Browns, and dude's like, no team, you fly home without me. I used to live here, so I'm going to go to my restaurant and get a public lap dance from some chick I don't even really know. And be silly enough about it to be sitting out in public where someone can record it and post it. Like, I mean, did dude think he was still the head coach at Ohio State and that because he was in the state of Ohio, nobody would post anything bad about him? Like, nah, dude, you're an NFL head coach. They're not happy you left Ohio State. Like, they don't love you anymore.
That's a good point. But I
not that he should have been out doing that stuff in the first place, right? Like,
yeah, I'm going to give him the Bill Clinton treatment. That's between him and his wife.
I mean, yeah, like on that front, and I've read or something, right, that they're separated and whatever. I mean, dealing with your marital issues, she may not care one way or the other about that. Like, it's just, dude, like, you're not helping yourself here. Like, you're not making your job any easier.
His team doesn't need the bad press. Got it. But I think that is a lot. That's really unfounded, though. Like, I personally, Charles Barkley said it best. I'm not a role model, right? Now, I think at an organization, and I think companies sometimes overstep their bounds, right? Like these stupid clauses of, like, what you can do and what you can't do while you're an employee.
Sure.
Go screw yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, and he does have a morality clause in his contract, in large part because of all of the stuff that had happened at Ohio State, and yeah. So,
I think morality clauses are subjective because
morality is subjective.
Yeah.
Morality is something you can debate, right? Like, is it morally wrong to steal if you're feeding your starving family? Like,
yeah, I mean, I look at it, and I'm not saying that I endorse that behavior. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I'm not trying to act like that's a tricky one for me. I just don't get it. Like, I saw the article, and I was like, damn, dude, that's going to suck.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, like, that's the underlying point for me, too. It is not to sit here and cast judgment on him for whatever was happening in the video. It's more just like, dude can't catch a break, but it seems like he causes a lot of those problems himself. Like,
hey, then that's a bad hire.
It is. I mean, like I not to say that he can't figure it out, but so far, I mean, it certainly looks like
They're 0-3 now. They're 0-4.
0-4, yeah.
0-4.
I mean, and like Trevor Lawrence has looked okay. He's thrown a lot of interceptions, but that, you know, I mean, they've got no offensive line to protect him. It's not a good look.
Yeah. So Mr. Mayor, whatever. I don't care, dude. I just like. Go down that road if you want to. See what happens, right? That's what I can tell you. I do blame the media for giving that crap too much press. I just think that's foolish, you know? I'm going to... Two things. One, Monica Lewinsky, because, kid you not, there's a... I don't know which channel's doing a...
She has like a show now, doesn't she?
I'm like,
yeah.
What? And my wife is like, who cares? And I'm like, I don't know why people care.
Why would anybody care what Monica Lewinsky thinks, right? Like, or what she has to say? Why is she a relevant person in current media?
Yeah, it's like, that was embarrassing. Now, granted, there are probably personal issues between her and the Clintons. Got that. You're not going to solve it this way. Like, if he owes you an apology, but he didn't do it, or a real apology, and you keep churning stuff out, like, I get it. If you're going to be an advocate for women's rights in the workplace, totally get it. Come up with a different angle. Like,
I mean, and like at the end of the day, like she didn't know that the dude was married. I mean, he's the president of the United States.
Oh, that part I don't even want to get into, because it's like, yo, chick, you got caught with dude. You knew he was married. Like, it wasn't like some random guy that you met and you got caught up like that. He's the president of the United States. We all knew who his wife was.
Exactly. Like, there's no moral ground, high ground for you to stand on. Like, oh, I deserve an apology. Bitch, you don't deserve shit. You're lucky you've gotten what you've gotten at this point.
You got caught up, and then it went south, and blah. You know, I don't know. I know she was younger. I get all that. I'm just like, yeah, but I don't really think this is the way for... Like, not redemption, but just a move-on moment.
I'll just say that the executive producer needs to be fired if the name of the show isn't Blow by Blow with Monica Lewinsky.
See, that's wrong. I cannot support that. I cannot support that.
Sorry, that one...
Yeah, you went on your own with that one, bro. Like, I'm not even going to laugh at that. I'm just going to say...
He says as he's laughing.
The second thing is...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yo, I'm pissed at the Broncos, and I'm pissed at Teddy Bridgewater.
Why? Because he did exactly what you said he was going to do? Yeah, I mean, I could not help but chuckle a little bit at the fact that, like, when I saw the thing come up, like, oh, Teddy Bridgewater's injured with a concussion, I'm like, oh, that dude went and did something stupid, and Andre's sitting at home like, you idiot! I told you not to do that! But now you got your boy Drew Lock back there.
Yeah, but now he's, like, throwing sponges.
Yeah, he does not look good.
He has no reps, and it's like, that was so Vic, I know you don't care my opinion, and I'm not trying to like get in beef with the Broncos Nation. I'm really not. I'm just saying, like, and it's not even about going with the horse you know or the new horse. It's not even about that. It's like the kid had promise. You get him ready. You take the proven path to get to wins, not this other crap that you did with Teddy. And Teddy, I hope you feel better. I'm not dissing you. It's just like,
right.
He's got Cam tendencies, man, and that's just not that's not the quarterback I want.
I think he doesn't seem to, for somebody that's been injured and kind of had as much bad luck as he's had, he does not seem to have good self-preservation, tendencies.
Who does that remind you of?
Well, yeah, Cam. No, I get exactly what you're saying. I just, for those of you following along at home that don't speak Andre Knees. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, my Seahawks got a win. It wasn't pretty. they were playing somebody not that good. Oh, the 49ers, and Garoppolo was out. And so I was waiting for like Trey Lance to beat the Seahawks. I do not think the Seahawks are very good this year. Like I mean they're okay on offense, but I think that defense is pretty much hot
It's seen
garbage.
better days, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not holding out a lot of hope there. You know, Teddy kind of derailed my jump on the Broncos bandwagon plan. So I guess I'll just become a Patriots fan. Just kidding. I'll tell you who I'm not a fan of, though.
Who's that?
One Mr. Dan Orlovsky.
Bring it on, man.
Yeah, like you probably, because you don't watch like a lot of television, and I didn't either, so I didn't really have this much of a problem. But now that I'm down here at the beach with my folks, like they watch a decent amount of live TV. And especially in the mornings, like my mom will put on the Today Show and stuff, and after a while I can't stand listening to the news, so I'll usually flip over to ESPN or something just to see. And this dude, Dan Orlovsky, he was the quarterback, I think, at UConn. He got drafted in like the 5th round. He was on the Lions for a while and then bounced around to a bunch of other teams. I think his Wikipedia says that he was in the league for 12 seasons. Now goes on every ESPN show that they will let him be on and talks like he has, like, basically like he's Tom Brady. Like, that his experience in the NFL should never be questioned. And, I mean, like, he was calling for Matt Nagy to get fired last week after, like, the Justin Fields performance. Like, and I don't know, like, there's just something about him that I just don't, it feels like he's not, like, the whole thing is not genuine. And so, yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I see him come on or I hear him on like the radio and I'm like, there is nobody whose opinion I want to hear less right now than Dan freaking Orlovsky. Like, John Kitna knows more about playing football in the NFL. like freaking Mike Glennon. All right. Like these guys know more about NFL life than Dan Orlovsky.
Well, I'll tell you what. Like I was driving into Raleigh this morning, and I heard this story about Sage Steele.
Oh yeah, I saw a little bit about that, but I didn't dig into it too much.
Gosh, poor girl. Like here's
was that like a legitimate poor girl or a sarcastic poor girl? I couldn't tell.
It's a little bit of both, man.
Okay.
Like, so she's on a podcast. She makes this statement that she's biracial, but I think she I guess she checks the box white for whatever reason. Her mom's Italian, her dad's black. She makes this statement that her dad was never there, kind of similar to Barack Obama. And she's like, I don't know why he checks black, and because his dad was there. And I was like, yo, that's like you keep that at home conversation.
Yeah. Not do that on Jay Cutler's podcast.
Yeah, let's not just say this out loud. And I don't necessarily disagree with that opinion, right?
Right.
I mean, that's completely...
But that's an individual's decision. That's not... right?
What I don't agree is that ESPN pulled her off for her personal opinion. That goes back... It's like, look, that's how she feels. I mean, so what? Like, who cares, right? Am I going to... I'm not really going to be like, if she's doing her job well as a commentator or like on ESPN, I'm not going to be like, yo, she said this. I don't care. She's doing her job. There are people that don't like a lot of things. I don't care. I don't know, and I don't care about what they don't like.
Well, and those two things have like nothing to do with each other. And it, like, right? Yeah, it's not like she's a political commentator, or that Barack Obama was a football player. Like,
right.
It's not
like the league is not going to shut. Well, the league might shut you off because you talked about President Obama. And then she made another comment about sometimes she doesn't work with young women that ask her to look at their tapes or mentor them because of what they're wearing. And she had her own opinion about that. And I'm like, okay. But
no, wait. She said that she doesn't...
She will not. If a young lady comes to her...
And asks her to look at her tape.
Their tape, and what they're wearing is questionable to her,
Yeah.
she's just like, nah, I'm good. And like,
I mean, again, like, that's your prerogative, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's your decision if you don't want to help out other people in the industry. And maybe it's, based on past experience of her trying to say, like, hey, I'd love to help you. One of the things I'd recommend is this, and getting negative feedback. And so she's just like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of
move on.
Yeah, but, and it's one of those things, right? Like, probably to some degree not getting the chance to explain it thoroughly, or on the podcast, or it's kind of taken not like out of context.
The sound bites are going to kill her.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Poor girl. Like, I don't disagree with her opinions. I'm like, yeah, you're entitled to how you feel about that, right? We're not all supposed to agree with each other all the time.
Right.
But the sound bites are going to kill this chick, yeah.
Well, and then, so the headline that I read also mentioned vaccinations and like the ESPN vaccination policy or something.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, she's supposed to be back next week, I think.
Sure.
Like,
But
they took her off for a week or something like that. And yeah, like, I'm with you that I think, somebody like expressing their personal opinion
on a podcast, it has nothing to do with your channel.
But I guess, like, I mean,
no, like,
no, I'm just.
Nobody can make me be okay with that. It's kind of like, look, if that's the case, seriously, if that's what we're doing, then I better not ever see a company that is, oh, we support this and that on Fox News. Like,
well, sure, yeah. I mean, like, I agree. I guess it's just, I think, like, at the end of the, I don't know. I guess I don't know what I think.
Yeah, but look at that. Like, I'm not offended by what she said. I mean, I can respect her for having an opinion, right? And I can move on. I don't have to rock with it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm not gonna. I guess I don't want to sit here and tell a company like ESPN, because I mean, is like the Jay Cutler podcast, is that an ESPN property? Is that something like? Because in that case, maybe they do have some, like,
sure.
But
why were you on Jay Cutler's podcast?
Well, that's a good question. Why does Jay Cutler have a podcast? Who gives a crap about what that guy has to say? Oh, I mean, you want to talk about, like, you want to know who's just above Dan Orlovsky on the list of people that I don't like and whose opinions I could not care less about? Is your boy, Jay Cutler. I dislike that dude so much from the day that the Broncos drafted him. And I loved Phillip Rivers and his, like, their rivalry, like, where they would just talk smack to each other when he was on the Broncos. That was great.
Well, even with that, I think where Cutler had an advantage was he had an offense that could actually back some of it up consistently.
Sure, I mean, I'm not arguing there, but
the downside was he could not drive the car. He made so many, like,
the dude didn't care. Like, yeah. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, reminds me of Harrison Beck, the I think 4 or 5 star QB recruit that Chuck Amato had that was supposed to replace Phillip Rivers. He was one of the guys on the list to replace Rivers, and that dude was useless. Like,
and didn't you guys lose to Carolina that year also?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like, there was the PapaJohns.com Bowl, because that was a thing in Birmingham, Alabama. And Russell got hurt in the first half, and so they trotted out Daniel Evans, and he was completely ineffective. And so then Harrison Beck goes out there and throws back-to-back interceptions, like, just chucking it down the field. Like, I bet I could throw a football over the mountains. Like, I mean, the dude... That was him in a nutshell. And he came off with this smirk. And I remember, like, Tom O'Brien just being like, get this kid out of my face before I murder him. Like, I think I broke him.
Okay. Let's go to pop culture.
Pop culture.
What the what? Oh, man. Chris.
I had to grab another beer.
Oh, man. I need to get a beer refrigerator for my office.
I know. I need one that's in or closer to my recording space and not in the other room. Oh.
That's funny. Oh, man.
So I don't have much for pop culture this week, but we did go see the new Addams Family movie, the animated one this weekend. Helena loved it. It was one of those where it was like plenty of good stuff for kids, but it just didn't deliver at the same level that the first one did for grown-ups.
Right.
I just like so many of the jokes were like, "Oh, it's this character's back. Let's spend like 5 minutes celebrating that," you know. And it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, my theory is if there's a lot of commercials or trailers, it's probably going to be a crappy movie. And I've seen a lot of commercials and trailers for that movie, so I'll wait. And I don't have kids anymore in the house.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I haven't really been watching a lot of even movies lately. There's not been anything on that's caught my eye. Kind of in this whole lull. Want to see Shang-Chi. That's going to be the new joint. But I tried to watch Q-Force on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And I really tried, but
I'm trying to Q-Force.
Yeah, it's this. The premise, it's an adult animated show.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I tried to watch it, and it just fell flat on so many levels for me. It was just kind of like, I want to see because, again, I'm trying to understand, not understand, I'm just trying to be, like, open to, like, looking at things I normally wouldn't look at.
Yeah.
There were some things I just thought were kind of stereotypical, like tropey jokes. It wasn't funny, and I just couldn't stay on. I think I watched 3 episodes. Then what really messed me up was and I don't know what's going on with adult animated cartoons. When do we start doing sex scenes in animated cartoons?
Oh no, that's a thing.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean, not everywhere, but
yeah, I'm not okay with that.
I mean, I don't know who's necessarily responsible for it. I think it's one of those things where I feel like the boundaries of what was acceptable on, broadcast television, right? We all kind of we at least were familiar with it, whether or not we agreed with what they were. We knew what they were, and so it was one of those where you'd see certain things, you'd be like, I don't remember seeing that on TV before. And I think to some degree with the streaming services, you don't have that same level of, I guess, responsibility in that. And so I feel like there's a lot more of that is just kind of like, well, whatever you want to produce. If it's a show that's for 47-year-olds and up, then it's a show for 47-year-olds and up.
We'll slap a TVMA on it, but
yeah,
I'm just not, I don't know if that's I don't know how I feel about that. I just I'm not really into I can watch any movie without a love scene, period. I just don't.
I mean, I'm with you in that I think it's greatly overused in Hollywood as among Hollywood tropes, the passionate love scene. We all know they're not really doing it. We all know
it's really 3-5 minutes. It's hey, go make me a bologna sandwich. I mean, so stop setting these unreal expectations.
I feel very sorry for your wife, Andre.
No, I'm just. That's not a complaint in my house, dude.
You walked right into that one, though.
Yeah, but I'm just. It's not as.
No, I know it's not
as staged as what they make it to be.
Right. I always think of the shadow love scene in Top Gun. Where it's and take my breath away. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, that's realistic.
Yeah.
It's hey, why is your shirt not coming off? I mean, those are things that you're knocking.
I feel like at the end of the day, the only reason directors put that in there is because they want people to experience that moment of just horrible uncomfortableness when they're watching that film with their parents or some other family member. You know, like it's just like. Yeah. No, I had to do this when I was a kid, so I'm going to make you suffer through this as an adult or semi-adult now. I mean, they had a really weird sex scene in Addams Family that I was like, this is a kid's movie. No, of course I'm kidding. That's a kid's movie.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with pop culture. Not a lot going on. I mean, Wanda Sykes is one of the voices, and I love her stand-up, and I thought it'd be, like, really good. Just kind of didn't work for me. And, it just didn't work. I think that, it's kind of like why I stopped watching American Dad and Family Guy after a while. It's just kind of like, I get it. Like, you've done this already. So.
Well, and Family Guy was one of those shows where I really liked it when it first came out. Then it went away. Then it came back. I really, really, really liked it. And then, but like after that first season or two after it came back, it was like they just, again, lowest common denominator. They're like, oh, what people enjoy about our show is when we say, hey, remember that time when? And then we reference something that you've literally never seen before, and it jumps to some zany clip. So let's just literally make the entire show about that. There is no actual plot driving stories. There's no overarching. There's no character development. Not that the show had a ton of it to begin with, but there was enough to kind of keep you engaged that you still, like, you could enjoy the laughs, but feel like you were still watching a story and not just a bunch of jokes stacked on top of each other.
Right.
American Dad, same thing. Like, I agree. They got to a point where it was like, you guys have just run out of stories to tell. Like, you don't have more stories to tell with these characters at this point. Stop. It's okay to just stop. I mean, like, people keep talking about wanting to bring back King of the Hill. And, like, I love King of the Hill. King of the Hill is one of my all-time favorite shows.
Brittany Murphy died, though, first of all. Okay,
yes, she died. They did have somebody else that did her voice for the later episodes after she had passed. Tom Petty passed, too, and he did the voice of Lucky.
Let it go.
And I agree. Like, ultimately, the last 2, maybe 3 seasons of that show, I felt like almost every episode was a rehash of a previous episode. Like, like The Simpsons, same deal. Where after a while with The Simpsons, I just kind of got, like, and I loved The Simpsons. Like, The Simpsons was my jam. I still do. Like, I love The Simpsons, but I don't watch it anymore. I don't watch any of the new episodes because I don't find it funny.
I don't care. Like, I stopped caring probably way before you did. Because I think I used to watch it, like, every week. And then
it was a family ritual in our house. Like, Thursday nights and then eventually Sunday nights when they moved. Yeah. Like, I remember when The Simpsons moved from Thursday to Sunday night. And it was like, oh, my God, it's changing nights. This is going to upset everything.
Yeah, and I just stopped caring. And I think... Well, Sunday was not good because of football. But it was like, I'm good. So hopefully, and I kind of fit not at the same level, like What If on Disney Plus.
Yeah. That's apparently been upsetting a lot of people with the storylines and stuff that they've chosen to go with for that. I saw a headline for an article that was like, Marvel needs to apologize to, Captain Marvel after the latest What If episodes and stuff like that. And I think, it seems like you've kind of gotten to a point where you're like, we can do. Your scientists were so busy asking themselves if they could, they didn't bother asking if they should. This is a Jurassic Park moment here, ladies and gentlemen.
this is it's a stretch, and I painstakingly watch the episodes, and I'm a big. I love comic books. And I love Marvel. I just can't. Like hopefully they can tell better stories, but it's like I'm not interested. So not much to watch on TV. This is like the worst thing I've got going on right now.
This is not the best time of year in some senses.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
SNL came back.
Yes. So I did thoroughly enjoy the one part of that show that I can reliably enjoy, which is Weekend Update.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you know, our counterparts, Colin
Yep.
Jost and Michael Shea. I wish it's just funny because I was sitting there the other day, and they take the entire Weekend Update bit, which is maybe 5 minutes, if that, and they cut it into like 15 different YouTube videos. So you can't just watch the whole Weekend Update thing through. You have to watch like this bit, and then the end of that bit with the beginning of the next bit, and then the end of that bit with the beginning.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys are killing me. So from now on, all of our episodes are going to be cut into 5 minutes.
No, they're probably the funniest thing on the show. I think Luke Wilson did a good job. No, Owen Wilson.
Owen, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything of any of the bits with him in it. Like, I literally, all I did was watch Weekend Update.
Weekend Update. Yeah.
And then I read that article about Horatio Sands and all apparently a number of SNL cast members and other such staff. Just, you know, I mean, and this is...
It's weird. It's gross.
It's weird and it's gross and it's wrong, and this is like the problem.
Well, that's implied.
It
it's
is.
Wrong, it's implied.
I don't know. Things could be weird and gross, but not wrong.
In your world, not in my world. If it's weird and gross, it's like, understand that's wrong. You should not be doing that. There's,
I guess, sure.
Whatever.
But yeah, it's just like, I guess the culture of enablement, right? Like the looking the other way that goes on so often and allows for these types of predators to exist. You know, I mean, Nasser, Larry Nasser, and like, I mean, it just seems like it's the same story over and over again of people seeing these things happen and choosing not to say anything about it. Whether it's because they thought it would help to advance their own career or because they feared that it would prevent them, you know, if they did speak up. But, like, I mean, you're choosing yourself over so many countless other individuals in that case. And something that you are going to suffer that probably cannot even, I mean, not even probably, but that cannot even remotely compare to the trauma that these other people have had to experience because you did nothing.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, she's 17. She was 17. It's like,
she was
dude,
15 when the whole relationship started.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah.
For those of you that don't know, because I know we didn't really talk about it, but there's this story that has come out where Horatio Sands, a former cast member on SNL, has been accused, and it seems like very likely did commit some horrible underage sex abuse, sexual harassment, grooming, all of the, I mean, just...
the stuff R. Kelly just got convicted for.
Yeah, the stuff that Jeffrey Epstein went to jail for. Yeah, the stuff that Matt Gaetz is, accused of. All of our favorite people. But yeah, and what the story, I think, what was even more disturbing, if you can really believe that, than that bit itself is the fact that there appeared to be a number of then SNL staff members that watched these things happen and did absolutely nothing to stop it. And
yeah, numerous people knew that she was not even 18 and she's drinking with Tina Fey and all these. I'm like, Will Ferrell. I'm like, come on, yo. There's a. Yeah, it's just gross. I don't know what else to say. It's like there's a special place in hell for all those people to stand there and just do nothing. And then, if I'm being honest, I think a few of those people were caught up in the whole Me Too moment, and we stand with whoever, fill in the blank.
Yep.
It's like, well, come
when
on,
it's convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what that is. It's part of the reason that
change this. It's the system is not broken.
Right.
the system is working the way it was designed to work.
Exactly.
It's just that people, like, they benefit, like you said. They benefit from the system. The system's not broken, ladies and gentlemen. Like, stop pretending like it is. These injustices that happen to people, I'm like, we were coming home. I was bringing my daughter home from work the other day, and like, somebody won an award. First time a non-white person won this award, and everybody's excited. And I'm like, why is that special? And not because of it's just like, why it's just, the system's not broken. Like, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
It's just like, people are shocked that these things happen, good and bad. And it's like, we waited because of what? We waited to tell somebody because of this. We waited to recognize somebody because of this. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the system. Like, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much else to it. I mean, we are all part of that system, like, and that's why it's not just like, vote in the, people that are going to fix this for us. No, like, we're the ones who have to fix this. This is something that each one of us has to take ownership and responsibility for. Excuse me. If we really want to make real change happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the people that are saying we should pull all of our Kelly's music off of streaming services because he's going to make millions of dollars in royalties. Or you could just not listen to his music.
Yeah.
like if this is the system and we play our part, just stop listening to his music.
Oh, but R. Kelly's music is so good that I can't not listen to it.
Without you taking it away from me.
How am I going to make love to my wife if I can't listen to my R. Kelly? That's my baby making music.
No. Next.
It's time for politics.
Oh, dang. So, speaking of Cheeto Man.
Yes.
Yeah, this dude he's a savage, yo. People are like, he straight up said, if DeSantis runs, I'll beat him.
Yeah.
The only thing barring him from running for president in 2024 is a doctor's note. He really said the only thing barring him from running from office is if he gets a note from the doctor. That piece of shit. Look, he just...
Yeah, I mean, there's... I'm so
Not
glad
jail.
that, again, that there's, like, his general relevance continues to go down, it seems, despite the media's attempts to maintain some sort of relevancy for him. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is he's not even, like... Not that I think he was ever really in control, but he doesn't even control that part of his party that I think everybody is, like, clamoring for.
The base?
Yeah. The ones that loved him.
I think you're right.
I think they've kind of like, okay.
They've moved on.
Exactly. And enough of them realize that if they couldn't get him elected in 2020, there's a fat chance that he's not getting elected again in 2024. And so, despite their admiration for him individually, I think ultimately they're going to choose, their own perseverance and just pick somebody that they think is actually going to stand a chance of getting elected. Now, whether that's DeSantis or not, I wouldn't vote for the guy, but I also wouldn't live in Florida, so.
Yeah. You had me, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're right. I don't think he really controls the that part of the party. I think the narrative is being driven by the media. For example, Lindsey Dump was in, I don't know where he was, somewhere in the South, and suggesting that people get vaccinated, and they booed him.
Yeah.
I mean, so, yeah, it's Yeah.
This is the same vaccination that Trump was, responsible for because of Operation Warp Speed. But now we can't take it. I mean,
that's still such a stupid name.
Well,
I just
aside from that, it's just that I don't know, man. It's still just so hard sometimes to sit here and not feel like we're fighting this monumental uphill battle against. I mean, just like willful ignorance, like the desire to not know the truth and instead to wrap yourself in the lie that makes you feel more comfortable.
Well, the perfect transition, Omarosa. She.
See, this is why this podcast works, Andre.
It was all good until it wasn't, and when I guess the judge ruled that his NDAs were.
I mean, it literally said you can never say anything bad about him, his family, his company, or anything about your work experience there.
Ever.
To anyone. Ever. In any capacity. Like, I mean...
Good Lord. I just thought that was so funny. But what is Omarosa going to say?
That I couldn't even really... I don't even care. Like, there's nothing, revelatory that she's going to, He called me the N-word in the Oval Office. Like, no.
Really? That doesn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
That doesn't surprise me because you're being stupid. I mean, the people that his former press secretary that was actually working for the wife.
Yeah,
I saw her interview the other morning on CNN, and she's taken a lot of flack from the media, and I think that's its own little group. But she said, she can't forgive herself, and she made mistakes, and she. If she could do it all over again, she wouldn't have taken that job. She probably would have come out early and said some things. Doesn't absolve her.
No.
But
it shows growth.
Well, not even growth. Sure.
I mean,
because she recognizes, that was a bad play. Like everything I did for the sake of the moment, a bad play. So
the first step is admitting that you have a problem.
Yes. I don't know. Like we actually spilled oil on the coast of California. What is it with California, yo?
Well, what'll be really bad is if the fires reach the oil.
For a state with so many environmentalists.
Yeah, they really have a way
their track record is not that great.
Stepping on their own junk.
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, you have, Newsom and all these other people coming out and being like, we shouldn't be drilling in the ocean. And it's like, but who let them do that in the first place? Like, you guys weren't real concerned about it until all of a sudden there was oil spilled everywhere. But
wasn't that the Republicans, though?
I mean, it probably was.
I think they're drilling it where the feds have to give them permission.
It might be.
That would be the
They tried to do the same thing here in North Carolina. They wanted to open up offshore drilling here, and thank God we voted no.
But for what though? What do we?
Why? Right?
We import most of our oil. We hoard it.
Yeah.
What we produce locally, which makes no sense to me.
Well, it does and it doesn't.
It does. I know it does.
I know you know it does, but. I mean, they're in it for the long con. Like, we're gonna buy all of your oil and use it all, and then when there's none left, guess who you have to come to?
Yeah,
and guess how much more of the money it's gonna cost you? I mean, petrol prices are going up now.
It's like $3.07 here for regular.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel bad for California. It makes me not want to ever live in that state because it's like a disaster movie waiting to happen.
I mean, like earthquakes, fires, oil, droughts.
There's been movies about all those things.
Yeah.
So those those screenplays they're inspired from personal events.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I'm glad I don't live in California anymore.
Right.
You know, like that's, and none of I actually do have, my aunt and uncle both live in Huntington Beach, which is like right where the
Oh my God, that's like in the news.
Yeah.
I saw this couple that were so pissed. They were like, I can't believe they did this.
Maybe it was her. I don't know. And then my cousin lives in L.A., but they're the only ones that are left in California at this point. All the rest of my family has bailed.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I really, and I'm not trying to be intensive. I'm just saying, like, man, get it together, guys. And what's up with your energy suppliers are on some shady crap, you know? They spill oil. They might have started the fires because of, like, poor maintenance and all this other... It's like, come on. Like, there's got to be some level of, okay, enough's enough. Like, what is the AG doing in that state? Or any state that these things happen?
When has anybody really, like, done anything about these types of events in the past? I mean, we had the huge Gulf oil spill with BP, right? And they basically just said they were sorry a bunch, and we were like, okay, just don't do it again. Here, you want some more offshore drilling platforms? Go ahead. Yeah. You know, I mean, like the Texas electricity grid, right? Like, kills hundreds of people because of the winter storms, and they've done literally nothing to make any changes or improvements to that system in the time since.
Yeah, but, you know, go Governor Abbott.
Yeah, I mean, no abortions and more guns.
Yeah. But you might die. Like, you might die just from freezing to death or, you know, I don't know, not having power when it's 100.
Not having drinkable water, like, you know, I mean, all sorts of reasons.
These are things I can get behind.
I don't know, man. I mean, the whole, like, political landscape lately just feels like it's teetering on the edge of, I don't know, chaos, apocalyptic results. I mean, like, now they're saying that the oil spill in California could very well have been caused by one of those giant cargo ships that is waiting out in the harbor to deliver stuff, dragging its anchor across the pipeline.
Yeah,
that's
very...
They had
plausible.
a section like 400 feet of, I think it was feet, might have been meters, of pipeline that had been moved roughly 150 feet on the ocean floor. And they said it was as if it had been pulled taut like a bow. Like a bow and arrow. Like, so basically somebody, you know, something got it and dragged it. So it was either one of the cargo ships or Godzilla. Either way, we are not looking good, folks.
And I just watched Everything Wrong with Godzilla the other day. So,
wait, Godzilla versus King Kong, or just Godzilla? Like,
one of the reboots. I lose track.
Gotcha.
You put something on here. So we talked briefly about school boards, right? And how
yes, we talked a little bit about school boards in the past. But I saw this article that my local school board meeting was disrupted by anti-mask mandate protesters. So basically, the deal is that every month the school board meets to vote whether or not they want to keep the mask mandate in place. And so far they've voted more or less unanimously. I think this most recent one was 6-1 in order to keep it. But at this most recent meeting, they had a bunch of anti-mandate protesters who were outside, who then tried to force their way inside but refused to wear masks in order to do so. So they were turned away. Like, it's just...
We're going in. We're not going in.
Guys, they won't let us in because we don't have masks. Like, oh, if only that's what it would have stopped the Capitol riots, like on January 6th.
Again, I tell you, they don't believe what they're saying, dude.
No.
If they really believe that crap, they were in there. Some of them would have gone to jail.
Yeah.
People just want an opportunity to kind of like buck the system, I think. I think that's like the new thing.
I mean, yes, I think that's part of it. I think there's an element of that, right? We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, like the erosion of faith in institutions, you know, like where people don't trust the government. I mean, not that we've always like, oh, the government is the best thing ever, but I think while there's like a healthy skepticism of the government isn't really super efficient, they're not great at getting stuff done, there's still kind of been a belief that at the end of the day, it's helping more people than it's hurting, right?
They're not going to kill us all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, like, they're trying so hard not to kill us all right now. And you're just, like, slapping them in the face, you know, and saying, like, don't you dare try to not make me not kill myself. It's my right, my body, my choice. If I want to die tomorrow, I can die tomorrow. And it's like, no, that's actually, no, like, suicide is not.
But you're pro-life.
Well,
like,
yeah.
These whole circular arguments, they blow my mind. And I honestly, I don't wish ill will towards anybody, but I've seen like a number of commercials and like just stories of people that they didn't get vaccinated, but when they get, now this could be a lot of in like just polarization of these particular cases in the news, and I get that, but the sentiment that people share when they're like, yeah, I really wish I would have gotten the vaccine.
Yeah,
they're being genuine.
Nobody's holding a gun to their head.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate that there are so many people that are, I don't even get their motivation. I just don't understand it.
I don't either. I mean, I'm with you in that it doesn't make any sense. You know, like so many of the arguments against getting vaccinated have been defeated one by one. You know, it's like, well, I want to wait for FDA approval. Cool. Okay. You have FDA approval now. Like, oh, well, now I have some other excuse, right? Oh, now it changes your RNA. No, it doesn't.
How?
They had put microchips in it. No, they didn't. Like,
how?
Right.
Like, have you ever seen the smallest chip ever designed?
Yeah.
It wouldn't fit in a syringe, dude.
Right. I mean, it's just the whole... You literally carry around a freaking tracking device with you 24/7. Right. You morons that had location services enabled while you stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, as you're posting on Facebook and Instagram
and Parler.
I am in Parler because they're the most secure site. I hate to say this, but I'm no longer sympathetic to people that get COVID that haven't even gotten the vaccine. I'm just not. I just can't pretend to be. They made a choice. They made the wrong choice. Now, I do understand there are some people... how do I say this without being a hypocrite? There are people with valid reasons. Like, you know, there's not what I would consider, like, concrete evidence about the effect of pregnant women. Like, sure. But from the evidence that they have, it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, my sister, who's 7 months pregnant, is fully vaccinated now. Like, she got hers over in Portugal not that long ago.
Yeah, and I just can't with these people anymore. I just don't. I care, but I don't care. You know, it's like,
well, and
I
so,
hear you.
it's interesting to me from a political perspective specifically. I was thinking about this the other day because I saw something that was talking about how, like, Alaska is now in, like, going through a massive COVID outbreak, and like, because for a long time I've been trying to wrap my head around, like, the Republicans and the conservative, like, position of anti-vax, anti-mask, anti-anything that's going to help to get rid of this. And trying to figure out why, like, how do they feel like this is a tenable position? And I think, I'm not saying that I definitely figured it out, but something that kind of came to mind is, for the most part, right, the more rural the area, the more conservative the votership.
Right.
The virus really affected more urban areas first, right? The more highly populated, like, city centers and stuff like that.
Right.
But those places were also best equipped to handle the outbreak because they had the resources, the hospitals, and that sort of stuff. What we're seeing now is that more of the rural areas are starting to experience massive COVID outbreaks because they aren't vaccinated, they're not wearing masks, and on top of that, they have no infrastructure to support it. So they are having to make life and death decisions between, do we treat this COVID patient, or, you know, this person with you got in a car accident, like
Right.
those are the decisions that they're having to make in those areas. And part of what I think in maybe Republican, politicians' minds was, well, it's not going to affect my voters right off the bat. And so if we can get it under control fast enough, I can stand in this position without it ultimately affecting my votership and still make it seem like I was doing the right thing. But they played the frickin' wrong card because ultimately their voters didn't go out and get the stuff. Like, we didn't get it under control fast enough, in large part because their voters who aren't in rural areas were doing the same things and continuing to spread it. And so now those rural areas are going to have to deal with the fallout of these decisions from their politicians.
That makes sense. I think it's a gamble. So I was, I did real. Well, I can't say this because. Well, make a note to beat this part. Tell me when you got the note ready. He's writing the note.
Okay, so, go ahead.
So I sent you that text. You're probably like, what? But now we can unbeep it. But in what I was thinking about along in some of those areas was kind of like basically our political system. I know I was flirting around the idea of switching the House and the Senate. Yeah. We theoretically would be in the same boat, but there's a level of collective ignorance when it comes to how our governments run. And what I keep seeing, like even with COVID, is that we elevate issues that aren't really issues. So COVID was a voting issue in 2020 after the election, prior to vaccines. The economy went back to number one for a short bit on the top of voters' minds, and other things went at the top. Then you fast forward, like until we get to the infrastructure announcement, then we get to the spending bill announcement. The Republicans were still on, guess what? COVID, because they did so poorly. Like COVID killed them as an issue in 2020. So I think to what you're saying is that they probably hedged their bets that people would get the vaccine. So it made sense to go in that path of, being anti-mask, right, and anti-shutdown. Probably not so much anti-vaccine. They probably wagered.
And even most of them now, like DeSantis and these other guys who come off as very anti-vax, don't specifically state themselves that they're against the vaccine, right, but they're against vaccine mandates, right? And then they let the crazies come up and spout their nonsense and conspiracy theories and stand by idly without disagreeing with anything that they say. I mean, they had video of DeSantis at an event where he literally said that, where he's like, we will never allow mandates or anybody to force us to do the things we don't want to do, including vaccines. And then he has some guy that he's standing there as this guy's like, it changes your RNA. It's going to configure you differently. And he's just like, yeah, it could be. Don't know. This guy.
Yeah, but I'm vaccinated. So
right, like, exactly. I mean, that's the thing that I think.
It's a let them eat cake moment, right?
It is. But, I mean, do they not remember how the French Revolution ended? Like...
I don't think they do, though. That's the irony.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you're right. Like, I think that's very much where we seem to be at, right? Is this belief that, like, we can get away with anything and, we're never really going to be held accountable for any of this. And so what's the harm in killing off 700,000 Americans, I mean, that's 700,000 less Social Security people that we have to worry about.
Yeah, Jared Kushner said it best, right? He said, "Well, those are blue states. Those are blue cities. We don't have to worry about that." And I know it sounds super cynical, I don't think that's very far from the truth.
No, I don't think I mean, yeah, like it's terrible, right? Like, how awful is it that we find ourselves in that position as a country, where it's like, based on who you voted for, we either need to worry about or not worry about you dying from a horrible disease. Like, that's, and not even who you voted for, but who the majority of the people in your state voted for, right? Who the majority of the people in your city, like, that's the thing that drove me nuts. Is I'm sitting here watching, like, you guys are killing your own voters in those places. They may not be the majority of the people in those areas, but you're killing them too. Like, why do you not care about that?
Well, I'm stuck on this one because I think there is a if I'm looking at a chessboard in this whole scenario, like, you've got a lot of things. You've got DeSantis backing down, who's trying to, like, take attention off himself because Trump said he would beat him in an election. Trump is the de facto leader of that party. You've got Mitch McConnell hedging bets. You know, Mr. I've raised the debt ceiling 32 times, but I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to do it this time.
Yeah, you've got Manchin pretending like he has got the betterment of the population.
Meanwhile, let me pad my bank account with billions of dollars in coal mine stocks.
While I sit on my houseboat in the bay. You've got our president, again, I'm going to say he's a gangster because he's talking $2.2 trillion. I'm not willing to bet, but I'm pretty confident that when he proposed that spending bill, and he already got the infrastructure bill passed, he already won.
Yeah. I mean, so I kind of figured the 3.5 was the number that he threw out there to get to 2.2, right? I mean, he knew he wasn't going to ever, that wasn't just going to be, all right, we'll give you 3.5, right? I mean, you don't go to the car dealer and say, this is what I'm willing to pay for the car. You go to the car dealer and say, hey, I don't really want it that much, but you don't need it.
Right.
Taking up space in your lot. So, look, I'll throw you a couple shekels here.
So I think that people are looking at the board and they're getting lost by the position of the pieces.
Well, it's the, you just lost your knight, to a pawn. Yeah. It's like, yeah, but that was all to get the pawn out of the way so that I could, right? Like, yeah, and yeah, like, I mean, I've never played chess with Joe Biden, so I don't pretend to know that he's an excellent chess player, but he seems to know enough about how to get stuff done in Washington that he wouldn't walk up to the table and say, this is exactly what I need. Give me what I need.
Yeah. He even prepped them for it. He goes to the House and says, these bills are tied together. So whether that had been true or not during negotiations, and whether people want to nitpick and say, well, you're backing that, you're walking that back, the guy's been pretty effective in month number 8.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of, like, I think the Republicans are so set in their win by any means necessary mentality. They're losing control of what they typically are focused on.
I mean, they don't have a focus other than obstruction at this point, right? It's not about smaller government. It's not about less regulation. It's not about, pro-business or whatever, lower taxes. It's, anti-democrat is all we are. I mean, look at Kristen Sinema or Sinema, whatever.
God, this chick.
Yeah. Who literally is, like, against things just so she can be against them. Like a contrarian just to be a contrarian.
And it blows my mind. No, actually it doesn't. Because I'm actually, like, when I look at the political landscape, I'm like, isn't this boring, ladies and gentlemen? Aren't we bored yet? Because we're not entertained. Like, but aren't we bored? Like, we can literally watch the same moves over and over. We're placating to, like, West Virginia. Let's write West Virginia off. Right? But let's focus on Georgia. What can we do to make sure that we have people in the political system in Georgia that are going to be helpful for the country? Let's write, well, we don't need to write Arizona off, but let's replace her on the ballot because apparently...
Let's just give it back to Mexico.
Sure.
They can take Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. That feels like that should be theirs to begin with.
I mean, it's in the name.
We'll even throw in Mississippi and Louisiana for free.
Think about the Pandora Papers that came out. They're talking about all the shelters and people that are hiding money in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Or Wyoming. One of those places I'll never go to. And that's probably why. So it's just a matter of, look, aren't we tired yet? Can't we go to, like, I'm sure there are states in the Midwest that could probably, if we're going to play this 50-50 Senate, or like ideally 52, ideally 53, because there are going to be some dissenters, let's go for states that actually make sense, to where it forces a real bipartisanship or bipartisan relationship in Congress.
Yeah. Because
what we're doing now isn't working.
No, and I mean the idea of bipartisanship for the sake of bipartisanship, right? Like
it's failed.
That good ideas can only come from compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. So no on all accounts. So I mean, I'm not in cinema being harassed in the bathroom. Like, I think that's disrespectful.
I mean, I agree. Like, I think there's a time and a place for that type of, like, you don't agree with her, that's fine, but you don't, accost somebody in a private bathroom and start.
Well, she wasn't accosted. It was just like, I just think it was just a bad look.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me not want to...
It comes back to this maintaining the moral high ground.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to win this fight in the long haul, we have to maintain. You all right there? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Momentary technical difficulties while Andre bumps his head on the microphone.
I'm doing all types of stupid. Go ahead. Moral high ground.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm getting kind of tired of saying it because it just seems like there's not enough people that feel the same way. Maybe that, but that I don't think that's true, really. Like, I say that and then I immediately, and I'm like, no, it's this. We're in that same boat, right? This is the person who blew up at her or confronted her, like, is part of the extreme side of things. This is not some normal person who's just like, I've lost all control over my ability to do stuff. Like,
and we all know about it because that's the story the news wants to put on the news.
Yeah.
Right. Now, shame on Kristen Sinema or whatever, Senator Sinema. Let me be a little bit more respectful for not actually expressing her point and stance on this bill. Shame on her for that.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from that. You don't get a free pass. You don't get a get out of jail free card for being you're not doing your job.
Right. Like your job is to vote on these bills, right?
Yeah.
Like to pass legislation. So if you're going to do that, you have to understand what it is. And if you have a problem with it, it's probably important that you communicate what that problem is so that people can then talk to you about it or try to resolve it.
And if we can get all these stupid surveys and polls for the most mundane crap, why don't we have polls for the big bills that are in our that are sitting and going through our Congress?
Because why don't we vote, like, to tell the people, to tell our representatives, or they should be open to communication to it, where we can actually say, no, 50% of your constituents want this. Right. I mean, we can vote on bond measures at the state and local level, right? But we're not allowed to vote on how the federal government, how much money we give them.
I mean, it's like you can have all these polls, and the polls are only important during an election. They're not important with any other issue.
Sure.
That's what's That's what's depressing. Well, you're yawning.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
You're tired. It's okay. So
we'll save the rest for next week.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on, and we're super glad you guys joined us today. And thank you for listening to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. It's really appreciated. And to all the people that are on YouTube checking out our videos, that way you get to see me bump my head on stuff. Thank you for doing that. Hopefully I made you laugh. Please subscribe and like on all the platforms. And if you're super adventurous, listen to us if you go to our website, chrisandandreshow.com, we have an RSS feed. You can plug it into your favorite player. So you're not bound to these particular platforms, but we try to be where people are at. If you have any questions, shoot me an email at andre@chrisandandreshow.com or
chris@chrisandandreshow.com.
Anything general, comments at chrisandandreshow.com. We would love to read them. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And before I wrap it up, my wife was telling me this funny idea that we might want to just talk about, see if we could pull it off. It'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're gonna tease the audience with that, but we're not actually going to let them know what that idea is. I like that.
Oh yeah. So we may have something up our sleeves. But we really do appreciate you guys joining us. As always, I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you next time. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't hurt my head. Yeah.